Hello and good evening, Oxnard. Thank you so much for tuning in to our very first ever women's hiring seminar here at the Oxnard Police Department. My name is Paul Carganilla. I'm the Community Affairs Manager here at Oxnard PD, and just like to welcome everybody here. We are streaming live on our Facebook page, and if you are watching us, obviously you know that, and you know that there is a live chat thread here on Facebook. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them at any time. I'll be watching the chat, and we'll be able to address as many of these questions as you have for our panelists here tonight. Speaking of our panelists here tonight, I'll introduce them to you, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome Corporal Megan Toby, Dispatcher Sharon Radcliffe, and Oxnard Police Field Training Officer Catherine Moriera. Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And for everybody at home, the time is 6 p.m. on the Pacific Coast right now. We're going to be streaming. If you're catching this live stream, once it's over, know that we won't be able to answer your questions right away, but we'll get back to them in the chat as we can when we go back into it. And I'd like to say hello to everyone watching. I see Sonia, Ashley. Thank you so much for being here. I just want to kind of get to know everybody here on the panel a little bit. I'll go left to right like I'm reading a book here on the screen with Corporal Megan Toby. Hi, Megan.
Hello, how are you?
I'm so wonderful. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So I just to get to know each of you a little bit, what year did you get hired here, or did you start working here?
In 2012.
2012. Okay, so you've been here about 10 years.
Yes.
I can math. What inspired you? Did you always want to go into a career in law enforcement, or what lit that fire for you?
Yes. Since I was 7 years old, I knew that I wanted to be a police officer. I grew up in a family of kind of public service. My dad was a firefighter with LA City for 38 years. My stepmom was retired LAPD. My mom was a nurse. So I kind of grew up in the field of just public service. So my dad used to take us to March of Dimes every year, and I got to play with all of LAPD's fun tools. And so as a kid, that always attracted me, so I wanted to be a police officer.
Very cool. And so did you study that in school?
I did. I got my degree from Cal Lutheran University with a bachelor's in criminal justice and a minor in sociology.
And did you have any other jobs before being hired here?
Yes, my first job was at Jamba Juice.
Nice.
And that was in high school. And then when I went to college, I actually worked as a non-sworn, what we call here as a TSA, but with the sheriff's department world, it's called a cadet. So I would take traffic accident reports, write tickets, and I did that while I attended Cal Lu. And then I fortunately got hired with Oxnard PD at the end of my college career.
Very cool. And how was, I mean, we're going to talk about this a little bit more, a little bit later, but how was the whole academy experience for you?
I think surreal. I mean, you kind of have an idea of what you're getting yourself into, and you have an idea of what you're going to be doing. But then you get there and it's completely different from what you expected. But then the days go by, the weeks go by, and you learn a ton. And you're tested mentally, physically, emotionally. And by the end of it, you're at graduation, and then you're on to the next step.
Was it everything you thought it would be, or was it kind of surprising?
I think both. I think there was some stuff that you're kind of prepared for because you go through a pre-academy and you kind of learn, what you're going to be dealt. But then during it, they always catch you off guard to see how you react. So I think both.
Very good. Well, and 10 years have gone by, and so you're a corporal. Can you just explain for everyone out there, like what promotions or what assignments you've held so far?
Sure. So I started as a patrol officer, and as soon as I got off probation, I became an Explorer Advisor. So I work with our youth and have been in the program since I got off probation, so 9 years now. And then I went about 3 years in, I became a member of our neighborhood policing team. Which still exists today, which is great, community outreach and working with the public. And then I had the fortunate opportunity of going to detectives and working in the property crimes unit as a police officer. And then I tested for corporal, got that. So I went back out to the neighborhood policing team. And then right now I'm fortunate enough to be back in detectives, working as a corporal in the property crimes unit.
Very cool. What a journey, huh?
Yeah.
All right. We'll talk more about it in just a little bit, but we want to say hello to the other two ladies with you. And right there in the middle is our field training officer, Catherine Moriera. Hello.
Hi,
Thank you for joining us tonight.
I'm glad I made it. I was working, so
Oh, yes. You started at 6 a.m. today, huh? Well, thank you again for being here. After a long shift, was it a long day?
yes, it's been a long day. It's very
Well, let's talk about what got you started. What inspired you to become a police officer?
A family friend got me involved in the Explorer program at the Port Hueneme Police Department when I was 16. So I started there, and I went on to be a part-time dispatcher, a police reserve officer at 19, and I got hired right after I turned 22.
Wow. Was your first job here at Oxnard PD?
No,
I mean, as a police officer.
No, I used to work for the Port Hueneme Police Department. I was there for
Gotcha.
2 years, and I lateraled over to the Oxnard Police Department in 2001.
All right. And can you explain just kind of what, I mean, obviously, I think with your background, you kind of knew what to expect a little bit, but what was the hiring process like for you?
Well, I already knew what was expected of me when I was at the Port Hueneme Police Department. Again, when I was 16 and I was in high school, I knew that I should be on my best behavior, not get into any trouble, no alcohol, drugs, things like that. Obviously, I had a lot of examples of how not to behave, being exposed to seeing, going on calls or helping taking calls while I was in dispatch, how things can go bad pretty quickly. So I tried to stay out of trouble, which I did. And then when I was 18, I went to be a dispatcher. And then when I went to the Reserve Academy at 18, that's when I pretty much knew what was expected of me when I was going to go on to the full-time academy, because I knew that I wanted to be a full-time police officer.
Very cool. So I mean, you started super early, but did you have any other jobs before you went into law enforcement?
Yes. No. Well, yes, I started so early, but I did a lot of clothing store and retail. That was a lot of fun.
Nice.
And then, but most of my jobs were related. Like I worked at the Ventura Community College District Police. I was like a part-time officer there. And I did that while I was attending the academy. The Port Hueneme Police Department at the time could not afford to send me to the Ventura County Sheriff's Department's academy. So they paid for me to go to Rio Hondo, more like a college course. So I did that and maintained 2 jobs until I graduated 6 months later.
Wow. Well, customer service is really important. I know a lot of people who maybe don't have the experience in law enforcement are just blown away by the amount of customer service skills it takes to be a police officer.
Exactly. It's hard to describe unless you're actually doing the job. But it is no different than going to a grocery store, going to a bank. You need to be respectful. The citizens of Oxnard do pay my salary, so I do work for them. So obviously it's the same thing as if you go to the grocery store, someone's going to your grocery store, you want to be respectful and you want them to come back.
Absolutely. And I want to just take a brief moment to thank everyone at home for watching. It looks like we are in 50 households right now. If you have any questions for any of our ladies here on the panel, go ahead and drop them in the live chat. Once we're done introducing each of our panelists, I will begin to address any questions that you have about the hiring process, the career. If there's anything at all you'd like to ask these ladies about a career in law enforcement or with the Oxnard Police Department, please drop it in the Facebook live chat as we are live right now. Speaking of customer service, it takes a whole lot of that to be a dispatcher. And we'll move over to our final panelist here tonight. This is Sharon Radcliffe. Thank you so much for joining us, Sharon.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and for anyone who's watched these Facebook live streams before knows I started here in dispatch, and Sharon was one of my trainers. And some of the best times ever down in dispatch were with Sharon, training under her. And Sharon, did you know you wanted to go into dispatching or law enforcement from a young age?
Not really, no. Dispatching was more of something that I kind of fell into. I was in between jobs and in between school, and I have an older sister who's a dispatcher, and she was just starting her post academy for dispatch, and she said, "Come join me. I'll pay for you to do it, and you can live with me." And so I did the academy on my own, which is something that our department and most departments put dispatchers through. They pay for, you're being paid your regular salary while you're going usually. So I was doing it all on my own, and sleeping on my sister's couch, and attending the 3-week academy. So I kind of just fell into it. It wasn't something I had really planned out, and I had planned on going back to school for nursing at the time. So
Sure. So that was your original dream, was to go into like medicine?
yeah.
And so what was it about this post academy for dispatch that changed your mind?
It just felt like something, I really felt like it was something that I could do. And as young as I was, I started at 22 with my first dispatching job, and I realized that it was something I could do forever for an actual career with a retirement and benefits, um, and it was interesting and exciting every day, and every day was a little bit different. So I enjoyed that whole day.
Your first dispatching job, was that here at Oxnard?
It was not. I am originally from Northern California, and I worked for an agency called SHASCOM. It's in Redding, California, and we dispatched for the Redding Police Department, the Shasta County Sheriff's Department, Redding Fire Department, and all of the county ambulances.
What brought you down here, and when did you start with Oxnard PD?
I moved to Oxnard in 2003, and I went back and forth. I had applied both at the Sheriff's Department and Oxnard, and Oxnard just was the perfect fit. So this is where I ended up. I've been here since '03.
And might I mention, Sharon was our dispatcher of the year for 2021. We're so happy that you landed here. Now, you mentioned the post academy, and that is something a little bit different than being a police officer, in that a lot of dispatchers who are hired by agencies first end up doing the post academy at the end of their training. But you and others, an option is to put yourself through, like you said, your sister sponsored you through it. So that is an option out there for anyone who's considering being a dispatcher, or even a police officer, is to self-sponsor yourself through either the academy or post training, and it will make you a better, more desirable hire when you start to apply places, for sure. But of course, the dream is to get hired with an agency that will put you through and pay the bill for that, and pay you while you're going as well. What did anything surprise you once you finally became a dispatcher here in Oxnard?
Oxnard was very different than the agency that I came from. I was from a much more rural agency, and everything about Oxnard surprised me. The crime stats alone were just baffling to me. So
Can you
just a different place?
It's probably impossible, but I'd love to hear you try. Can you just like describe an average shift for a dispatcher?
Wow. Yeah, that's impossible. It just depends. We have basically three different jobs that you're doing. You're either a call taker, or you're working band 1, which is our main radio frequency, or you're working band 2, which is our secondary frequency. And with all of those, you can end up answering the phones as well. So we answer non-emergency lines, we answer 911s, we answer for animal control, and we take code compliance calls. So an average shift can be anything from a shooting or a stabbing to a barking dog complaint or loud music. It's absolutely everything in between, and sometimes it's absolutely nothing. Sometimes it's, somebody who just wants to talk and they really don't have anything to report. They really don't have any actual need. So sometimes we have to pump the brakes and slow down for those things too.
And just keeping in mind, like, there's so much going on in the center at any given time, the multitasking and being able to prioritize at a second, split second, making decisions. And what you guys do, somebody just said in the chat, you guys don't get nearly enough credit for everything you do behind the scenes. That was from Tammy. It's a tough job, and we give you praise wherever you are, wherever you're doing the job. But we are, of course, hiring. Tell us about that.
We're always hiring, and we're definitely looking for anybody who's interested. And it takes the requirements are pretty small. 18 years old, you have to have, I believe, a high school degree or equivalent, and we do all of the training live and right in the center. So you learn everything as you go. It's a long process, the training process, but you're working the whole time. Your regular 40 hours. You're with the trainer side by side. We never leave our trainees just kind of hanging in the breeze or anything. We're always right there with them and helping them through the really difficult calls, even once they get the mundane kind of everyday stuff down. We recognize that they're going to take things that they've never heard before. So we're right there for those things too. And then you move on to a radio. You start with our secondary frequency and then move on to the primary. And even once you're signed off, you're still doing new stuff every day.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it is a long training process. About how long is that process?
It used to be a year-long process when we were still doing fire. It's definitely shortened from there, but I believe you still have up to a year to get through the process. And if we have a trainee who is, really working towards their goal and trying, we're going to do everything to get them through. We're going to do everything to help them along with wherever they're having struggles. So I don't know the exact time frame anymore that it's taking people.
And it's all, I'll reiterate, all on the job training. So you're getting paid for, if it takes you a year to get fully trained, you get paid for that whole year. Just like being a police officer. I'll throw it back to the police officers with the first question from the audience here. And again, if you're watching us live, it's about 6:20 right now here on the Pacific Coast, on the West Coast. And go ahead and drop any questions you might have into this Facebook chat. I'm watching it, and as long as we've got time here tonight, we will address those questions. Jay asks, in law enforcement, as a woman, what was your biggest obstacle, either in the police academy or during your field training as a new police officer? And we'll start with Corporal Toby.
That's a really good question. I think that you face a lot of obstacles and challenges, but I think the biggest ones that I face, you put on yourself. I know women in law enforcement are very hard on themselves. I think because it's still a male-dominated job. I think that we hold each other kind of accountable and try to hold ourselves to a higher standard. So I think it's just proving to yourself. I wouldn't call it an obstacle, but I think that we're always striving to prove to ourselves that we can do it, other women, and then the men in the profession that women can do it.
And Catherine?
Well, I started a long time ago, and I can say that obviously there wasn't a lot of confidence. I'm not very big. I'm pretty girly. I like hair and makeup. So I think people really didn't take me very serious. In the beginning, I think times have changed a lot. When I first started, there weren't a lot of females. Now I feel a lot different because I'd be in the locker room by myself changing. Now I have 5, 6 girls in the locker room with me at a time. And I think it's really nice because we can give each other, like you were saying, the support, talk about our struggles as far as, sometimes people just don't take you as seriously. But on the flip side of that, I think that women in law enforcement offer the public a little bit different um, comfort. I think we're a little bit more understanding, um, you know, and I think maybe a little bit more empathetic. And I think even with sometimes with men who don't trust law enforcement, they tend to want to speak to women a little bit more. So, but I'd say things have changed a lot since I first started.
All right. Anna asks, is a college diploma required?
It is not required. However, I highly recommend that. Once you get started in your career, you get really busy, and college and a full-time job with shift work, or if you ever want to do an assignment where it requires you to be on call, it does become challenging. So a lot of officers do get degrees while they are in the job, but it's definitely more challenging.
And Luisa asks a perfect follow-up to that. Does having a bachelor's degree increase your salary?
Yes,
It does.
10%.
All right.
And also, something that I tell all our kids that come up, finish school first. There are circumstances where you go to military or you get you're away from it for a while and you want to start your career. It's a lot easier, as Kathy said, it's a lot easier to get the education out of the way so that when it comes to promotions, you already have the credits you need to promote, or maybe even experiences through your schooling to get into an assignment. So I would definitely encourage everyone, or the majority of people, to finish school before getting into this career.
Thank you. And Cindy asks, it might have been mentioned earlier in passing, but during the police academy process, is there pay?
Yes. So I'm not sure how self-sponsored goes.
Self-sponsored, you obviously
You pay yourself.
Well, it depends. There's two ways. It's a college course, so you can either put yourself through as a college course, but as far as we pay you to go to the academy, we're hiring you to go and represent our department. But there are people who go as a college course, and once they complete it, then they can apply at agencies as an academy complete, versus an entry level when you apply with us or any agency and they sponsor you through the academy.
Thank you. And Sonia asks, do you speak other languages? Either any of you?
I'm pretty sure that's my sister asking that question. She knows, yes, I speak Spanish.
Well, there is another follow-up perfectly from Luisa, who asks, are you paid more for being bilingual?
Yes, you do get compensated for being bilingual. And obviously any language. But.
Very cool. And I'll ask, just because I remember it being a huge thing in dispatch. Do you have to be bilingual to be a dispatcher?
You don't have to be by any means, and I'm not. But it's huge. It's so helpful. And we're getting more and more Spanish-speaking dispatchers in dispatch, and it's so nice to have them because we use the translation service, but it obviously takes a lot longer, and things are definitely lost in translation. So those dispatchers who speak Spanish are invaluable. And again, extra pay.
But the important thing being you don't have to be
No.
to work as a dispatcher. Anna wants to know, can I still attend college and be in the academy at the same time?
That's a bit rough. There's a lot of expectation in the academy. It's a long day physically, mentally. You have memos. You have to have your gear ready, your clothing. I mean, you have to study for tests. You do have a lot of tests to pass, which are all mandated. If you don't pass these tests, you basically get kicked out of the academy. So I would say probably not a good idea. Maybe take 6 months off or even a longer time, because the academy and being in field training are two completely different things. They're both difficult, but you definitely have a really difficult year. You know, you want to make sure you're off probation and a solid employee that you're here before you probably take on school again.
Perfect. Jay wants to know how to prepare for the written and the physical when you're trying to get hired.
Know the requirements. I think that's the easiest way, is know what we require for the tests. They're written. I think we recently changed the written, so it's a more of a universal written test, but it not challenges you, but it tests you on kind of basic knowledge. You don't have to know police officer codes. You don't have to know the penal code or the vehicle code or anything specific. You'll learn that all on the job, but report writing is huge. So grammar and reading comprehension, yeah.
Spelling.
So there's just those types of things that there are books. I know there are books at like Barnes and Noble. I know that is way dating at me. But like Barnes and Noble, I'm sure on Amazon now you can rent a book. But there are like prep books. So just look through those if you are uncomfortable, or just go and take it and see how you do. And then for physical, running sprints and long distance, push-ups, sit-ups, and then I think the thing that is the most challenging, because we don't do it every day, is jumping a fence and a wall. So if you have a 6-foot fence, a chain link fence, or a 6-foot wall, a brick wall that you can practice on. And I think there's also like the body drag, 165 pounds, I think. 165-pound dummy drag, so it's just a weighted weight that you basically carry for a distance. So pick up a sibling, a spouse, drag them through the living room. You'll be all right.
I'm picturing it now. Everyone at home just dragging their siblings around the house. In either being a police officer or a dispatcher, are there age limits at the bottom or the top?
21
21 is the bottom.
for the bottom.
It's 18 for dispatch.
I don't know if there's a limit.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a top limit.
Well,
I don't know. I'm sure it's on the job description though. So.
or HR can possibly answer that question. I don't know.
If you could do the job, apply. That's what we'll say.
People who have as a second career, we've had a lot of people who do military, 15, 20 years, and then they apply with us and go to the academy in their 40s. So it is an option as a second career.
Absolutely. Dipping into my personal life, my wife is a police officer. She's not with the Oxnard Police Department, but it was her second career. She started when she was 31 years old. But I think I believe the answer is if you can pass the physical, you should apply. What do you enjoy most about the job? Jay wants to know. We'll start with Corporal Toby.
I think it's the constant that every day is never the same, right? So every day is a new challenge. You get to meet new people every day. You do have to understand that you meet people on mostly their worst days. So being able to turn a negative contact, as far as them having a negative day, into something positive for them or for their family is probably the highlight of what we get to do. This department is incredible with our community outreach and all the programs we have with the community. So being able to interact with the community, even as a detective, where you think that I should be at my desk all day long, we can even go out and interact with the community. And then there's just so many opportunities. So I think just the constant change is really what I love.
Catherine?
You took my answer. Yeah, I mean, you're essentially given the responsibility to do your own work. So I think I like the independence, the unpredictability of the job, but ultimately you're responsible for your actions. There's nobody following you around to make sure that you know what you're doing or how to do your job. So, it's basically you do what, you think you should do every day, be responsible. But I do like that basically my car is my office, and it's a nice thing. But yes, also making a difference in people's lives. And, I also like what you were saying about the community outreach is I think a lot of the times there's a lot of negativity tied to what we do. We're always viewed as, not being good people. And when you can be positive with people and show that we are human, and we are really, I know it sounds funny. People always say, oh, yeah, what we are here to help, and you can actually show that to people in the community that that's what, 99.9% of us who do this job really do every day. That's a good thing. And you know that you've done your job for the day.
In
Sure.
dispatch, I would say probably the highlight is just working with the team. So in dispatch, we're in a little tiny room with no windows, and we really rely on each other and we work together. And when the going gets tough, we really come together and we help each other out. We are making phone calls for one another and we're making notifications for one another. Um, if I'm dispatching officers to something, somebody else will dispatch or make the phone call to get fire and EMS dispatched for them, and we're just kind of backing each other up all the time. So it's a really it's a nice team, and we always come together in that way, and we get to work with awesome officers, and we get to talk to the public, and sometimes people can be really sweet, and it's kind of nice to actually have those interactions. And when people are calling and then we can actually do something to help them, it's really nice to be able to help out in that way.
Absolutely. Yahira says, hello, I want to join, but it seems super complicated. I would say it's a step-by-step process. It could be a complicated step-by-step process, but you don't do it all at the same time. You start with the first step, and that first step is applying. And you can do that at joinoxnardpd.com right now. Let's see. This is a great one from Cindy. She asks, do you have any children? If so, how is life as a police officer or dispatcher while having parental duties?
Yes, I do have children, and I've had 3 while I was working, which is a bit of a challenge. But I had great support at home with my mom, who's helped me raise my children, and a great husband who takes on mommy duties as well. So it is a bit challenging, I would say. But what other job do you have where you can pick your hours and days of work? So the first few years, I worked during the weekend so that I could be home with my children to help them with school during the week. Now that my children are older and now they're playing sports, I can now work during the week, so I'm there for my children more on the weekend. So that's the one thing that I can say about this job. Shift work is not easy. However, it affords me the ability to choose what best is, or what time is best for me to spend with my children after school, being home when they're at school, depending on their age. So I say that shift work has worked for me in raising my children.
Yeah, the same for me with mine. I have 2, and there were times where my husband and I basically high-fived on the way out the door, the way he's coming in, and and tagged each other in and out of the house with the kids. But we've kind of been able to, now that my kids are a little bit older, and now that I'm in a position to be on call, I've taken on that as well as a tactical dispatcher. Whereas when they were younger, I didn't do that for the very reason that if my husband was working at night, I couldn't possibly be called out in the middle of the night and leave my kids home alone. So now that they're older, and our schedules are a little bit more flexible, it's easy to do. And I've had a lot of help from my sister and my mom as well.
Awesome. A great support system is so important in this career for sure. Louisa asks, any tips on passing a polygraph? That is one of the steps along the way.
Well, I would say if you need tips. Just kidding. No tips. Just be honest.
Be honest, you're gonna be nervous, but just be honest. It is what it is.
They get a baseline. So as long as, if you're nervous, you're nervous. It's when you lie that they're going to pick up on it. So just don't lie.
Don't try to beat the test.
Yeah.
Don't try to do that.
Simple as that. And this is a perfect follow-up. What are, if you know, what are the considered to be automatic disqualifications during the hiring process?
Lying.
You can't be a felon. That's something. You can't have drug use within a certain amount of time, or that kind of varies, especially with marijuana. But yeah, drug use, no. Don't know what else is like an automatic disqualifier.
I don't know. I can say that lying is one of the biggest ones. What happens is you have to fill out a history, basic questions. And if you are not honest in that and it is revealed during the background investigation, yeah, you will be disqualified for sure.
So we talk about this being a really long process, and someone mentioned that it is a complicated process. It's a long process. It takes about 6 months. So be ready, buckle down for the long haul. But the reason that it is so long is because we do a background, and so all of the things that can be found out about someone while getting hired is found out, and we have multiple personnel that work along with all the physical exam, the written test, the polygraph, the psychological evaluation. So there's a lot of tests that you have to go through to make sure that you're a right fit for us and we're a right fit for you.
It's not a seasonal job at the mall.
No.
And all of those processes that she just mentioned, those all go for the dispatch hiring process as well. So,
And I will add too, a lot of it isn't like necessarily your answers in the polygraph. It's your honesty, as you just kind of mentioned. There are certain things that are frowned upon, but they're not necessarily disqualifiers. But if you lie about it in the polygraph, that is a disqualifier. So come as you are, come as your honest self. And we hire the best of the best, and we want you to be your best for sure. Lizette wants to know, is getting tased and pepper sprayed a test/must in the academy?
Not
Tasing
tasing
no.
is an option,
But pepper spray, yes.
but they don't spray you in the face. I think they just put it on. They don't spray you.
Yeah,
They just.
I got sprayed.
Oh, I just I a long time ago. I got it put under my eyes, but
Yeah. I think they still at the Ventura County. That's the one I went to, the academy out there, and they spray you across the face a few times, and you do an obstacle course. It burns. It depends. Everyone reacts a little bit differently. It was horrible for me, but
there's the worst gas is not pepper spray. There's a different gas that's a little bit more intense. CNNCS.
And nobody asked, but it's a natural follow-up to that. But why are you tased and pepper sprayed?
It teaches you to understand what you're doing to someone else. It's not a good feeling, so maybe it'll make you think a little bit before you actually use it. So yeah, it teaches you to understand that it's uncomfortable, or if somebody chooses to get tased, which they don't shoot the prongs out, I think they kind of put them on you and you get tased. And that's an option from unless things have changed.
That was an option.
Okay. Yeah, it just kind of teaches you what it's like.
So, but it also, so when different tools are used, you could also be caught in, not the crossfire, but you can also be affected by those. So if Kathy and I are dealing with someone and I pull out my pepper spray to spray them, she's going to get affected by it. I'm going to get affected by it. So it teaches you to work through that, and teaches you that you can still do your job and push through that pain, even if you get the effects yourself. Same thing with someone being tased. If you cross over those wires, you might get zapped a little. So it's just teaching you, one, so you know what it feels like, but two, that you can push through that and it doesn't debilitate you as the officer who's trying to get control of the situation.
Makes a whole lot of sense when you explain it that way. Tyler's watching from Ontario, Canada, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and he wants to know if any of your children aspire to be like you. Of course, it's different for everyone, but
maybe 2 out of the 4, maybe.
I don't know.
hard pass. Yahira, I'm not sure which if she's talking about the academy or once you're working, but I guess it could apply to both. She asks, are you allowed to wear makeup?
Yeah, I have a lot on right now.
So in the academy, no. In the academy, no makeup. At least for the Ventura County Sheriff's one, no makeup is allowed. But then once you're out of the academy, you can wear makeup.
All right.
For makeup.
It looks like we've worked through all the questions that I've seen pop up on the chat here. So we'll start to wrap it up. We'll just do one last round of, what would you tell someone if that you hasn't been addressed yet here this evening, who is thinking about being a police officer and considering a career in law enforcement? Corporal Toby.
And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to test yourself. Don't be afraid to challenge yourself. If you think you can do it, I guess just have confidence in yourself and you're not going to know until you try. So don't be afraid of the process. Don't be afraid of how long it's going to take to get hired. Obviously this isn't I need to pay bills next month, so I'm going to start this process, but it's every bit of effort that was put forth through the hiring process, through the academy, and up to today has been absolutely worth it, and it's the greatest job I could ever have.
Catherine?
I would say do your research and make sure that the agency that you're really interested in is the right fit for you. I know that the city is really busy, and it's very different from other cities in our county. And I think the most important thing is to make sure that this is a career for you, because it is a long time to get hired and a long process with the academy, and field training is a long process. Go on a lot of ride-alongs, if you want to sit along in dispatch, even if you're applying as an officer and you want to sit along in dispatch, look at the demographics of the city. I just think it's really important to do research as to what agency you're interested in. And maybe it might be multiple agencies that you want to apply for, but just be certain that the agency you're applying for is the one that you really want to work for.
Sherry?
In dispatch, once you're an applicant, you definitely can come in for a sit along. And I think that's one of the very best ways to figure out if it's going to work for you, if it's something that you're interested in, if it's something that you can do. I don't think a lot of people really know what we do day in and day out and what the job looks like. So unfortunately, we get new hires that come in and are really wide-eyed and say, I had no idea it would be like this. And that's part of the reason why we have a heavy turnover. So again, do your research, and part of that research should definitely be a sit-along to find out if that's something you can do.
And a few more questions popped up, but this one's a follow-up directly to that, and it's how can a ride-along or sit-along be scheduled? Do you know?
Yeah, it's through the watch commander, but there is a form, and I believe it's on the website.
If not, our records division has it. You can come in, fill it out. It has to be turned into the records division anyways, so there is a very small background that is done before ride-alongs are allowed to be on, but it's done through our records bureau and the watch commander.
Perfect. Thank you. Couple real quick questions before we say goodnight. Is there a height limit?
No, you just have to be able to do the job.
Get over that 6-foot wall.
That's right.
There's a way.
And tattoo policy. What is our tattoo policy?
Well, they used to have to be covered. I think it can't be like anything offensive.
Yeah.
That's visible. If you did have something that's questionable, I think a lot of people who do have tattoos wear long sleeves. And some people even wear sleeves to just hide the tattoos. But for the most part, I don't think anybody really has any offense.
I think it depends what tattoos we're talking about. Obviously no gang-related tattoos or anything like that, or foul language tattoos, obviously, that can be seen, by the public. But that's up for the hiring staff to figure out.
Yeah.
it all comes around to we're looking for the best of the best. Once again, if you're interested, please apply. Go to www.joinoxnardpd.com. You can fill out the application to be a police officer or a dispatcher, either one. Both applications are right there for you. Thank you for joining us this evening in the live Q&A here on Facebook. And I want to thank Corporal Toby and Dispatcher Radcliffe and Officer Moriera for your time this evening. And everybody is saying thank you, and we wish you well and safety. Everybody wants you to be safe out there.
Thank you.
Thanks again, everybody, and have a great night.